All right, let's dive into something really fascinating today: the cartography of vanished sovereignties. We're basically going to uncover the ghosts that are hiding all over our world maps. When you look at a world map, it feels pretty permanent, doesn't it? I mean, the lines are all drawn, the countries have their names, but I want you to think about this for a second. Is that map really a finished document? The short answer? No way. The truth is, that map you're picturing is absolutely layered with history. It's practically covered in the ghosts of countries that just don't exist anymore. We're talking about places that were once their own sovereign nations. They had flags, governments, their own borders. And now, they've just vanished. So that begs the question, right? How does a whole country just disappear? Well, one of the most, let's say, direct ways is when it gets swallowed up by a bigger, more powerful neighbor. And this brings us to our first story, the story of annexation. So, what is annexation exactly? Well, put simply, it's the formal process where one state just says, hey, this territory over here, it's mine now. It's a political move that basically ends one country's story by absorbing it into another's. A perfect example of this is the Kingdom of Hawaii. Before annexation, it was a totally sovereign nation out there in the Pacific, recognized by the world. And after? Well, now it's Hawaii, the 50th state of the US. Its independent sovereignty was completely absorbed. And this wasn't some isolated event. Think about the Republic of Texas. For almost 10 years, it was its own independent country. But it followed a really similar path, eventually getting annexed and becoming the 28th US state. Just like that, two independent nations become part of a much larger one. Okay, so getting absorbed is one way to disappear. But sometimes countries don't get swallowed whole. They shatter from the inside out. It's like a piece of glass breaking. We call this dissolution, and it's when one single state just splinters into a bunch of new ones. For a huge chunk of the 20th century, this number, 1, represented one of the biggest superpowers on the planet. One single massive entity, the Soviet Union. And then, in 1991, everything changed. That one nation dissolved into 15 new independent sovereign states. I mean, think about that. A single line on the map splintered into dozens of new borders, almost overnight. Just an incredible transformation. Now, not all dissolutions are so, well, dramatic. Take Czechoslovakia. This was a totally different story. Instead of a messy collapse, they had what's famously called the Velvet Divorce. It was a completely peaceful separation. In 1993, one country just amicably agreed to become two, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. All right, so there's one more way a country can vanish, and it's a bit different. Some countries don't get absorbed and they don't break apart. They just transform. They basically get a whole new identity, a new name, a new flag, often as a way to leave a colonial past behind and carve out a new future for themselves. Yeah, I mean, look at these. The ancient empire of Abyssinia, today we know it as Ethiopia. And the country that many people once called Burma is now officially Myanmar. And here's the key thing. The land is still there, the people are still there, but that former name, that former identity, that becomes another one of those ghosts on the map. It's a relic from a totally different time. Okay, so we've looked at countries being absorbed, countries shattering, and countries just completely reinventing themselves. So what are the big takeaways from all this? What have we learned on this little journey through the ghosts of the world map? Well, first and foremost, it's pretty clear that sovereignty isn't permanent at all. Nations really can and do disappear. And we've seen the three main ways it happens, right? They get annexed, they dissolve, or they transform. And what that really proves is that global borders are way more fluid than we think. The map you see today, it's really just the top layer of a super deep and complicated history. There's this idea that I think just sums it all up perfectly. We have this tendency to look at a world map like it's a finished painting hanging in a museum, all fixed and final, but it's not like that at all. It's much more like a constantly changing sketch where new lines are being drawn and old ones are getting erased all the time. And that really leaves us with a pretty wild final thought, doesn't it? If the map is always changing, if it's never truly finished, it really makes you wonder, which of the countries we know so well today might end up on a future map of vanished sovereignties?